Every single video is complaining about women.
Right. Well, I no, because
It's not a good start.
I would. So I go. And if you would read my book.
A lot of it and a lot of the stuff with the top views, I find traps men in these communities.
So people will go, well, you know, you're just out there to sell as many books as you can. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm an author. That's what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
Well, don't bitch about it if you're not going to do anything about it.
You probably haven't read my 4th book right now.
Gentlemen, in this video you will not only see Lauren Southern school the fraud father in a debate, but also see Rollo getting exposed for what he is, a beta male, pseudo-intellectual who profits from men's misery under the guise of helping them, and who's more interested in building a cult following to feed his God complex than actually making a societal change for the good. So if you like these videos, please help us out by liking and commenting to feed the algorithm, because the more engagement this video gets, the more men will be warned.
I gotta ask, why Rollo Tomassi from LA Confidential?
You kind of I had to be anonymous in doing what I do and writing what I write and everything else right up until about like 2017. And so I always thought Rollo Tomassi was kind of clever because he's the guy that gets away with it, right? And LA Confidential.
I was gonna say, like, why the guy who like murdered people?
Yeah. No, because
it's not a good start.
So I always thought Rollo Tomassi was kind of clever because he's the guy that gets away with it, right? And because he's the guy that gets away with, because he's the guy that gets away with, because he's the guy that gets away with it, right? And
now there's nothing wrong with picking a pen name or a stage name, because after all, we do live in a cancel culture that wants to ban anyone who steps out of the mainstream narrative. But choosing the name of a mastermind serial murderer who manipulates his victims should raise suspicion in this space, as the red pill is about revealing the truth and how things really are, and not deceiving others. So what exactly is Rollo getting away with? Later in the interview, we find out thanks to Lauren Southern's journalistic skills. Because the way this interview has started, it is clear she understands who the fraud father really is.
You mentioned at the beginning that the overall theme of the Manosphere is getting together and comparing notes. And I find that like a very interesting point.
So here's what I always get, like a lot, and I'm actually surprised a lot of, like, I haven't got this question already, but a lot of times when I go on someone's podcast and they understand just sort of like the basics of what I talk about, or what I, maybe they read my first book or whatever. The first thing I want to ask is like, who hurt you? Like, what turns you evil, right? What turns you, you don't think right. I want to get to know you and figure out what went wrong, right? And it's like, there's not anything that went wrong. That's just it. I've been married for 25 years, happily. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary last month. So I get it from both sides. Like, if I go...
To quote Stephen Hawking, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. Lauren basically asks what is the Manosphere, and the irrational male spends a whole 5 minutes trying to sound like an intellect by giving a long-winded answer, when the question can easily be answered in one sentence. Rollo also spends a lot of time qualifying himself to Lauren, not just in this answer but throughout the entire interview, like a beta male trying to impress a female.
I'm jumping in here. I've let you have your little essay.
Go.
It becomes a bit of a copium or an addiction. And I wonder if that has something to do with there being a financial incentive of Manosphere creators for men not to actually be healed. Because a healed man is someone who would go in for 3 months, learn about sexual dynamics and relationships, get out of the Manosphere and go live his life. Because even if you're MGTOW, if you're a guy that wants to do your own thing, that's awesome. Go do your own thing. You don't do your own thing by sitting and consuming videos about women that you're not even talking to, having a weird parasocial rivalry with them all freaking day. That is the opposite of going your own way.
Right. Well, I have, in fact, I mentioned this on my last live stream, as a matter of fact. Back in 2000, 2018, I did a talk, and it was called "The State of the Manosphere Address." Right, it was like 2018, and I decided to do a SWOT analysis of it. You know what a SWOT analysis is? You know, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or something like that. And it's funny because every now and then I go back to that and I watch that video. I go, God, man, I was very prophetic in that. And even if I, sound like I'm glossing myself, but I think I kind of was. And one of the things that I thought was the biggest threat to the manosphere at that time was a commercialization of it. And that's easy for me to say, right? I sell books, right? So people will go, well, you're just out there to sell as many books as you can. It's like, well, yeah, I'm an author. That's what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
It becomes a bit of a copium or an addiction. And I wonder if that has something to do with there being a financial incentive of Manosphere creators for men not to actually be healed.
Lauren Southern exposes the grift Rollo. His protege is like fresh and fit, and his Rule Zero lapdogs do, by pointing out that Rollo is giving men not a solution, but an addiction through a Trojan horse red pill, also known as the Rollo pill, which is getting simps to stop simping for thoughts, but instead simp for him. This is proven when Lauren playfully pointed out Rollo's cult of simps in the early part of the debate.
I've gotten some interesting comments. Exactly. Team Rollo's in the chat. Gonna get them wristbands like Team Edward and Team Jake and everything. Are you for like kind of the trad version of marriage then? Like what would be the ideal woman to marry for a man?
Well, here's the way we used to do it, and here's the way some cultures still kind of do this. But we talk about, patriarchy. They smash the patriarchy. It's this horrible, evil, tyrannical type thing. It's like, no, idealized patriarchy is a balance. And what that meant was that the guy, to get to sex, to get to the point where his incentive to be in a marriage was to, well, first of all, to get sex, obviously, but he also had responsibility that had a concurrent authority from within that marriage. So it was daddy, daddy gets to make the decisions. Daddy is the head of household. Dad gets to do, dad's the one who's making the money. Women had to be dependent, quote unquote, dependent on that guy. So when we talk about strong, independent women today, what is that independence of? It's of men. It's not about like, oh, well, I make my own money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The reason why you do that, the reason why you're proud of that, the reason why you're sort of, filled up with pride over this whole thing is because you are independent of the provisionings that men used to provide for women. Women are still looking for that guy. They still want the guy who makes a lot of money, who wants to make them a kept woman, who wants to, still wants to be the classical patriarch. They just want old school benefits with new school.
So I'm still, what is the ideal wife was the question. Like, what is the woman that a man should marry?
The ideal wife is the one that knows that her role as a feminine woman.
Rollo answers a simple question in a convoluted way because, as usual, he's trying to beat his chest intellectually and dominate Lauren in the conversation by not answering the question. But it backfired. Then his true beta self comes out, or to quote Rollo, he lost his frame.
The ideal wife is the one that knows that her role as a
Did you hear his voice quiver?
Her role as
You see, Rollo is used to his Rule Zero circle jerk, where his lapdogs, Ryan Stone and Troy Francis, suck him off constantly. These so-called PUAs are only there to boost Rollo and make him look good. That is the only reason why he associates with these nobodies, because there's no proof that Ryan Stone or Troy Francis ever hooked up with even a 6-using game. Yet they're teaching men about pickup and dating. Rollo hides behind his marriage. On one hand, he'll concede by gaslighting, by claiming people are discrediting him for not being red-pilled because he's married, when in reality he's being discredited when it comes to dating.
If I go and I say, hey, I've been married for 25 years, people go, well, don't listen to anything he has to say. He can't possibly be red pill. He's been married for 25 years, right?
On the other hand, he uses his marriage to distinguish himself from incels and black pillars.
I've been married for 25 years, happily. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary last month.
Because apparently, it's not like men can be in a sexless marriage.
Guys in sexless marriages, the first thing they'll say is, I feel like I'm a roommate.
Rollo hasn't dated for at least 25 years. So then why is Rollo teaching anything about dating?
And we are live. Welcome to another world-class edition of your favorite game, dating, red pill, sexual dynamics show, the highest IQ show on these subjects on the whole internet, Rule Zero.
Most watched.
Sterling Cooper, the former male escort, is the only one there qualified to talk about pickup and dating. That's why Rollo uses him for credibility and views. Take a look at Troy Francis's YouTube page. First, his sub count is hidden, which means it's beyond embarrassing. According to Social Blade, his subs are less than 1,000, and that's after being promoted by Rollo for years. If you look at his top 3 most viewed videos, you will see Sterling Cooper and Tate, meaning Troy's own audience would rather watch someone else.
So are you a tradcon? Do you support the tradcon belief that there should be barriers to marriage, that men should be respected by their wives, the primary earners, that they get sex when they get married? Like, do you agree with that belief? Is that your ideal world?
It's not my ideal world, but I do see that as the old order ideal. Okay, that's 20th century thinking right now.
But you don't think the world can ever be like that again?
I don't think we can go back to that. No, I do not believe that we can go back to that, simply because we now have the internet. Okay, we now have access to information where we understand our natures well enough. That's 20th century thinking right now.
But you don't think the world can ever be like that again?
I don't think we can go back to that. No, I do not believe that we can go back to that, simply because we now have the internet. Okay, we now have access to information.
There you have it. Proof that Rollo's worldview is black pill, or at least he promotes a black pill and cell viewpoint to build his core audience. Here's what Rollo said himself earlier in the interview when defining an incel or the black pill.
I definitely see parallels between the more extreme ends of, like, say, MGTOW, and most definitely within the black pill communities, where it's like gloom and doom and everything's nihilistic and the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
The Rollo pill is a rebranded version of the black pill, where incels and black pillars can feel better about themselves and cope, which keeps them at the level 0, or the Rule 0 level, while MGTOW is level 1, dating is level 2, and traditional patriarchal marriage is level 3. So he can milk them for money by pretending he's offering solutions with Rollo pill idioms, while reinforcing black pill and cell themes to keep them at the Rule 0.
You're saying that women are children and they need to live in a world that men control them, and then you guys are not willing to take any of the responsibility to do that. Well, don't bitch about it if you're not going to do anything about it.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you is that it's what we call the 80-20 rule. Okay, 80% of guys, and I can show you this statistically through. There's a great book called Dataclysm. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but statistically speaking, women do not want to have anything. They find 80%, sometimes 85% of men unattractive.
Rollo sidesteps a legitimate point. How can women change if men don't lead? For example, women would be less promiscuous if at least men didn't partake in cheating. He answers with the black pill mantra. Women only want a Chad or a Tyrone, and if you're not them, you be invisible. While MGTOW and the red pill is about men inventing themselves. Take a look at this famous example of Flex Lewis, a bodybuilder who is not even 5'6", having an attractive reporter drool over him, because he built his physique to an elite level. If he instead listened to Rollo about women only wanting men over 6 feet, he would have given up on life and never built himself up. This is proof that Rollo is not red pill. Matter of fact, Rollo has never been red pill because he doesn't live a red pill life. For example, he doesn't look maxed by working out. He looks like the stereotypical keyboard warrior beta male. But most importantly, his wife controls his marriage. How do we know that? Because his daughter went to college, and we all know what happens when women go to college. They rack up at least a double-digit body count, become a feminist, and once they graduate, they support the gynocentric society by choosing a career over starting a nuclear family. If Rollo was truly red pill, he'd raise his daughter to become a homemaker and have her marry a high-value man at the age of 18. Rollo had a chance to do his part and help contribute a positive change in society by leading his own daughter, but because he's a beta male who knocked up a post-war woman he met at a club, and he wasn't man enough to raise his own daughter to be a traditional lady, proving Lauren's point that he, like black pillars and incels, only complain and do nothing to make an actual change in society. Thus, Rollo took the Rollo pill and pissed in his own well.
So a lot of this advice just coming down to, this is how you get the girl in bed, I don't think is building people up for their best relationships and best lives.
If you don't her, you don't get to understand what her soul's about either. So that's the thing, as I've said before, is that sex is the glue that holds a relationship together, because it defines what a relationship between a man and a woman.
Did you see Lauren's face when Rollo gave his fake alpha answer of what holds a relationship together? The viewpoint he's projecting is putting sex on a pedestal, exactly what a black pill or incel would say.
When I look at the content going to men, not all of it, there are good folks there, I'm sure, people. I know there are good people there, but a lot of it and a lot of the stuff with the top views, I find traps men in these communities. I think it makes them worse off, makes it harder for them to date. So do you know, I'm just going to read out a list to you and I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you know a guy named Coach Red Pill?
Do you want my assessment of these guys?
I just want to know if you know him. Do you know him?
Yeah, I do
okay.
know who he is. Okay, so let me explain something to you before you read the rest of these, and because I know what's coming next. So, here's the thing: is do I endorse these guys? Do I endorse? Okay, first of all, there are guys that are in the Manosphere right now who have no business being in the Manosphere. Coach Red Pill, sorry, you're one of them. You should not be. He is not a representative of what I would say. He's definitely a representative of what the Manosphere has become, but in no way should be representing the Red Pill whatsoever. Because a lot of these guys, and I hate to gloss myself, but I can name names right now of guys who simply go use my book, read passages out of my book, claim it's their own, and then build a very successful YouTube channel accordingly.
How typical. Rollo is jealous of other content creators because they're doing better than him. But it bothers his ego more. They're not treating him like the Godfather, giving him a kickback or credit for the red pill concepts, which he himself cherry-picked from the forums and rebranded them as his own ideas into the iron rules of Rollo.
I was part of a group called Soswav, which is still around right now. After almost 20 years, is still up, and it's still a functioning forum where people go and sort of, it's like a marketplace of ideas. I think that we focus a little bit too much on the personal stories or the anecdotes or whatever it is.
In this earlier part of the interview, Rollo is diminishing experience and skill by calling it anecdotes or stories to justify the fact that he's a keyboard warrior and truly lacks experience with women. This is why he needs his marriage more than his own wife, who's close to becoming a senior citizen. Because he is so socially awkward in real life, he would never be able to get laid unless if a woman was higher on the autistic spectrum.
And this is what I mean by the system of the Manosphere and how people make money and get men in there is actually creating a financial incentive for ruining men's lives.
It's not just the Manosphere.
Yeah,
it's in every freaking sphere is what it is. I made this comparison. I used to work in casino marketing. And when you go on a casino floor, it is sensory overload, okay? There's video here, and there's sounds here, and there's colors, and it's just...
Notice how Rollo does a psychology trick by agreeing with Lauren about the Manosphere scammers and con artists to make it seem like he's the honest one, but then quickly redirects the conversation to a tangent about the minute details of casino marketing. It's a known fact that during interrogations, a liar will over-elaborate their story with many small details to make their answer sound true or convincing, and ultimately try to evade the actual truth.
Every single video is complaining about women, and that's the same thing with the MGTOW sphere. Once again, we want to go our own way, but we're also going to spend all our time complaining and bitching about women. We want to... It just seems so unhealthy to me, my friend.
Take a look at the irrational male's face, as Lauren indirectly calls him out when talking about how incels and black pillars obsess over women. Lauren, in this final statement, summed up the Rollo pill perfectly. So what do you think? Did Lauren really expose Rollo? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe.